Real quick, I want to give you guys a tour around the box here. So on the front, you obviously have a nice shot of the ARRMA Kraton 6S. On one end of the box, they list all of the Spectrum Smart electronics that are included in this truck, as well as the 4 AA batteries, a charger, and a couple LiPos that you'll need to get this thing running. On the other end of the box, we have the 2 color options. This thing is available in red and blue. On the top of the box, they have a full-size picture of the ARRMA Kraton. This is the blue version I was talking about earlier. The bottom of the box highlights a lot of the upgrades that were new for the V4 lineup. So getting to the back of the box, that's where they start to talk about the V5 upgrades. Now I'll be touching on these new V5 upgrades a little bit more in depth later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. So really quick here, they have all of the Spectrum Smart electronics I mentioned earlier, and once again I'll get into a little bit later. They have a larger receiver box. They have a new chassis that's going to be a little bit more rigid than the previous model. They have a new steering top plate from the Kraton EXB. They also redesigned the suspension geometry on this truck with a new rear shock tower. They've got some safety technology which is on the pinion and input gears, and they also show that this truck has some brand new ARMs from the Kraton EXB as well. These things are a lot beefier than the previous versions. Alright guys, now it's time to get this thing out of the box. Looking at what's included in the box, we have a little bag of shock pistons to tune your shocks. We have a little bag of starter tools. We have a couple cross wrenches as well as some little Allen keys to get you started. We also have a high-speed pinion gear to get that 60 mile/hour speed they have printed on the front of the box. Something new that they're including with the V5, which is really nice to see, is a bag of shims. So as your diffs break in, you can add shims and they're supplied with the truck. I actually had some Techno shims getting ready to slap on the ring gear side of the ring and pinion, but now I won't even need those, which is great to see. We also have an ARRMA sticker sheet. Gotta love stickers. Then they also have a little performance chart, which will tell you the speeds you're gonna get by changing your battery and by changing your gearing. Then moving on to the owner's manual, this has everything you need to get started, has all your parts numbers and exploded views. These manuals are really nice, and they're not only for the Kraton, but for the Typhon, Notorious, and Outcast, and then the Mojave as well. And last but not least, they have a warranty sheet. ARRMA went ahead and included a new radio for the V5 lineup. This is the Spectrum SLT3, and this is replacing the Spectrum STX2 that was included on the V4s. One of my gripes with the STX2 is the fact that it had a plastic steering wheel. This has a foam covered steering wheel, which feels a lot better. So just like any other radio nowadays, you have the 4 AA batteries that need to go through the bottom, and then on and off button is on the back, as well as your throttle and steering reverse switches, all your trims up front. The one drawback to this radio is it doesn't have any of the Spectrum Smart technology features like the battery indicator. From the outside of this ARRMA Kraton V5, it looks almost identical to the V4. However, once you start digging into it, you'll notice a lot of great changes. So they're running the same body as the V4, which looks great, as well as the same DeBoots Copperhead 2 tires. These things have been excellent. I've had some experience running these on my Traxxas eRevo 2.0. Moving on to the inside of this truck, like I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that all of the electronics have been updated. So this is the Spectrum Firma 150 amp Smart ESC paired up with a 2050 kV Spectrum Firma motor. One of the cool features of this motor is actually the motor shaft. It has a little notch on the end that allows for an E-clip to slip on the end of the pinion gear. So that keeps your pinion from falling off. When it comes to specs, really nothing much has changed compared to the old BLX 185 motor in ESC. It's capable of 4 to 6S LiPo, so as far as performance goes, it should be almost identical. The ESC actually has a little cat pack on the battery leads that head out to 2 IC5 connectors. These are the smart connectors that will work with Spectrum Smart batteries. One nice change that I've noticed is an on and off button rather than an on and off switch. They used to have that little 2-position on and off switch with the BLX 185 ESC. I had some issues on the harder landings with that switch turning off, so hopefully that's eliminated with this on and off button. Moving on to the steering servo, they replaced the ADS 15M servo with a Spectrum S652. This is a waterproof metal gear servo that's supposedly 32% stronger than that old ADS 15M. Paired up to the new Spectrum SLT3 radio, we have the Spectrum SR315 receiver that's included in a new larger waterproof receiver box. That pretty much covers all of the electronics that have been updated in this truck. As far as the rest of the upgrades go, we have a brand new chassis. So what they did is they extended the width of the chassis in the rear. Used to cut off just behind the little mud guard, so right about there. They just brought it back more so it's harder to bend. They also added these little grooves here. Seems like a very rigid chassis setup. I'm excited to see how this thing holds up if we have any bending. I'm sure people are still going to find a way to bend this thing, but I think this is a huge step in the right direction. Another updated aluminum piece is the rear shock tower. So they updated the geometry. They brought it in. It is a lot narrower than the previous rear shock tower of the ARRMA Kraton, and this looks like a really stout setup. This truck is also running some updated front and rear A-arms. These were actually carried over directly from the ARRMA Kraton EXB. They are significantly larger than the old style, seem really beefy, and should hold up very well. They also updated the shock mount pins down here. They are also from the EXB. Another part they carried over from the EXB is the steering top plate. So I believe that the pivot balls that screw into the end of these A-arms are also slightly larger than the old ones. They are 6 by 14 by 37 millimeter compared to the 6 by 14 by 35 millimeters in the V4. They also have a larger spacer on the lower front A-arms that the pivot ball goes through. I believe they also carried over the sway bars from the Kraton EXB. These are 2.4 millimeter sway bars versus the 2.7 millimeter sway bars in the old V4 Kraton. So it's a really small change, but I figured I'd mention it. So just like the pinion on the motor shaft, they incorporated some of those safety features on the input gears going into the front and rear diffs. One change that I noticed going through the parts that I haven't seen anyone else mention is the fact that ARRMA actually upgraded the rear hinge pin braces and the C and D block of this truck. They used to run some thin aluminum hinge pin braces. They actually upgraded those to steel. They brought those over from the Kraton EXB as well, but it's only in the rear. The A and B block hinge pin braces are still aluminum. Those are a little thicker though, so you can definitely get away with that. So another small change that's actually a really nice upgrade is the fact that ARRMA is now including rubber sealed bearings in the V5 lineup. I know a lot of people have been wanting to see rubber sealed bearings out of the box, and now it's finally happened. So besides that list of changes, I haven't noticed anything else that's been updated. I'm really looking forward to running this truck for its very first time. I've never driven a Kraton before, so this is a new experience for me, and I hope you guys enjoy watching. So let me know what you guys think of the ARRMA Kraton V5 and ARRMA's V5 lineup in general. I'll try to respond to as many questions as I can and comments. I look forward to hearing from you guys and seeing you in the next video.